The blood-red sunset painted the Montana Territory sky as Vanessa Lockhart's stagecoach rumbled to a stop before a lone cabin nestled against the pine-covered foothills. Exhaustion lined her face, and her once elegant traveling dress was coated with the dust of 1,000 miles, the physical reminder of how far she had come from Boston to escape her past. "End of the line, Miss Lockhart," the driver called down, his voice as rough as the terrain they'd crossed. "Somebody's waiting for you." Vanessa peered through the grimy window, her heart hammering. There, silhouetted against the dying light, stood a tall figure, broad-shouldered, hat pulled low, the promise of salvation or doom she couldn't yet tell. It was 1878, and the West was still wild, untamed, and unforgiving, much like the man now approaching the stagecoach with purposeful strides. The driver helped her down, and she stood on uncertain legs, clutching the small leather bag containing all she had left in the world. The man drew closer, and she could see his face, now weathered by sun and wind, with eyes the color of the Montana sky. A scar ran along his jawline, telling stories she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. "Miss Lockhart?" His voice was deep, holding a gentleness that surprised her. "Mr. Lawson." She replied, remembering the name from the correspondence that had brought her here, arranged by her cousin who had known this man from his cattle drives east. "Logan Lawson," he nodded, removing his hat. "Welcome to Whispering Creek." Her gaze drifted past him to the small cabin behind, its rough-hewn logs and simple porch nothing like the grand house she'd left behind. A thin wisp of smoke curled from the stone chimney, the only sign of warmth in this desolate landscape. "Your cousin explained your situation," Logan said carefully. "The job as the school teacher starts in 2 weeks when the new schoolhouse is finished. Until then, I offered to give you a place to stay." The arrangement had been made in haste, a desperate solution to her desperate problem. Teaching was the only respectable profession she could manage with her limited experience, and this remote Montana settlement was far enough from Boston that her scandal wouldn't follow. "I appreciate your kindness, Mr. Lawson," she said, straightening her spine despite her fatigue. "I won't be a burden." Logan didn't reply, simply picked up her trunk from the stagecoach and began walking toward the cabin. She followed, each step sinking slightly into the dusty ground. The stagecoach rattled away, leaving her alone with this stranger and the vast, darkening sky. As they approached the cabin, she noticed the careful craftsmanship despite its simplicity: the straight, sturdy walls, the small garden to one side, the corral where several horses grazed. Everything neat, functional, with nothing extra or frivolous. Logan pushed open the door, allowing her to enter first. The interior was spare but clean: a wooden table with 2 chairs, a stone fireplace with a cooking pot hanging above glowing embers, a bookshelf with a surprising number of volumes, and 2 doors leading to what she assumed were bedrooms. "This cabin isn't much," she said, unable to hide the trace of disappointment in her voice. After all, even in her reduced circumstances, she had come from fine homes and society. The cowboy set down her trunk and looked at her with those piercing blue eyes. "It's home with you inside," he said simply. The words hung in the air between them, and something in his tone made her heart skip. She didn't understand why he would say such a thing to a woman he'd just met, but there was no mockery in his expression, only a straightforward honesty that was as foreign to her as this wild territory. "I don't understand," she said. "A cabin's just wood and nails until there's life in it," he explained, moving to stoke the fire. "Been living alone too long, I reckon. Even having someone stay for a short while makes it feel more like a home than just shelter." Vanessa removed her gloves slowly. "Your wife, your family." "Never married," he said, his back to her as he added wood to the fire. "My sister lived with me until last year. She married a shopkeeper from Helena." "I see. Your room's through there," he said, nodding toward one of the doors. "Used to be my sister's, the washroom's out back. Supper will be ready soon. You might want to rest a bit after your journey." Vanessa nodded, grateful for the chance to collect herself. She carried her small bag into the bedroom, leaving the trunk for later. The room was simple but comfortable: a bed with a handmade quilt, a a small dresser, a mirror, and a window that looked out toward the mountains. She sat on the edge of the bed, removed her hat, and let out a breath she felt she'd been holding since Boston. Here she was, in the middle of nowhere, with a man she didn't know, having left behind everything familiar. All because of one mistake, one moment of trusting the wrong person. Alexander Harding had promised her the world, then destroyed her reputation when she refused his advances. His influence had ensured she was blamed, shunned, her teaching position at the ladies' seminary revoked. Her own father had turned his back on her. Only her cousin Eliza had offered help finding her this position in Montana territory, far from the wagging tongues and condemning glares of Boston society. A knock at the door startled her from her thoughts. "Supper's ready if you're feeling up to it," Logan's voice came through the door. "Thank you. I'll be right there," she replied, quickly pinning her hair back into some semblance of order and smoothing her wrinkled dress. At the table, Logan served a simple but hearty stew with fresh bread. He didn't speak much, but his manners were better than she'd expected from a frontier rancher. They ate in relative silence until Vanessa felt compelled to fill it. "How long have you lived here, Mr. Lawson?" "Going on 8 years now," he replied. "Came out after the war. Wanted open space and quiet. You fought in the war between the states," a shadow crossed his face. "Union cavalry, saw things no man should see." "I'm sorry," she said softly. "It's past," he said with finality. Then, changing the subject, "Your cousin mentioned you taught back east." "Yes, at the Worthington Seminary for Young Ladies in Boston. Literature and music primarily. Not much call for music and literature out here," he said, "but the children need reading, writing, and figures. 15 students ages 6 to 16. "I can teach the basics," she assured him, slightly offended at his implication. "I'm quite adaptable, Mr. Lawson." A hint of a smile touched his lips. "Never said you weren't, Miss Lockhart, just warning you it's different here. These kids are mostly from ranching and mining families. Some have never held a book before, but they're eager to learn." The conversation lapsed into silence again as they finished their meal. Logan cleared the dishes, refusing her offer to help. "You're tired, get some rest. Tomorrow I'll show you around, introduce you to some folks in town." "Thank you," she said, rising from the table. "And thank you for the meal, it was quite good. My sister taught me to cook before she left," he explained. "Said a man shouldn't live on beans and coffee alone. She sounds wise." "She is," he agreed. "Good night, Miss Lockhart." "Good night, Mr. Lawson." In her room, Vanessa changed into her nightgown and slipped under the surprisingly soft quilt. Through the thin walls, she could hear Logan moving about, the sound of water being poured, boots being removed, such intimate, domestic sounds from a stranger. This small cabin would afford little privacy, she realized. They would be living in close quarters until the schoolhouse was finished and she could move into the attached teachers' quarters. 2 weeks with a man she barely knew. It would have been scandalous in Boston. Here, it seemed simply practical. Still, she would need to maintain proper boundaries. Her reputation couldn't afford another blow. As she drifted towards sleep, exhaustion finally claiming her, she found herself thinking of his words. "It's home with you inside." Such a strange, almost poetic sentiment from a rough frontier rancher. There was more to Logan Lawson than met the eye, she decided. And despite her better judgment, she found herself curious to discover what lay beneath that weathered exterior. Morning came with the crowing of a rooster and the smell of coffee. Vanessa dressed quickly in one of her simpler dresses, a practical blue cotton that wouldn't show dust as easily as her others. When she emerged, Logan was already fully dressed and cooking breakfast, his back to her as he worked at the cast iron stove. "Good morning," she said. He turned, and for a moment, something flickered in his eyes' appreciation, perhaps before his expression returned to its usual stoic calm. "Morning, sleep well, better than I expected," she admitted. "The bed is quite comfortable, my sister's doing. She insisted on a proper feather mattress, said straw wouldn't do for a lady." "I shall have to thank her if we ever meet," Vanessa said, moving to the window to look out at the dawn-lit landscape. In the daylight, she could see that the cabin sat on a gentle rise, with mountains in the distance and rolling grasslands dotted with cattle stretching toward a small collection of buildings that must be the town of Whispering Creek. "It's beautiful," she said softly. "Most folks don't see it that way at first," Logan commented, placing a plate of eggs and bacon on the table for her. "Too empty for most Eastern tastes." "There's a certain majesty to it," she said, taking her seat. "It feels untamed." "That it is," he agreed, joining her with his own plate. "Town's about 3 miles that way. We'll ride in after breakfast if you're up to it." "Ride?" Vanessa felt a flutter of anxiety. "I'm afraid I don't ride, Mr. Lawson." He looked genuinely surprised. "Never. I've ridden in carriages, of course, and the stagecoach, but horseback." "No, that wasn't appropriate for ladies in my circle." Logan considered this as he ate. "Might be a problem out here. Most places aren't accessible by wagon, especially when the snow comes." "I suppose I'll have to learn then," she said with more confidence than she felt. "Suppose you will," he agreed. "We can start today. I've got a gentle mare that would suit a beginner." After breakfast, Logan led her to the small stable behind the cabin. 5 horses occupied the stalls, and he walked directly to a chestnut mare with a white blaze down her face. "This is Daisy," he said, allowing the horse to nuzzle his hand. "Gentlest horse I've ever known. My sister learned on her." Vanessa approached cautiously. "She's beautiful." "Go ahead and let her smell your hand," Logan instructed. "Horses need to know you before they trust you." Hesitantly, Vanessa extended her hand, palm up. Daisy sniffed it curiously, then nudged it gently. "She likes you," Logan said, and Vanessa couldn't help but notice the small smile that softened his features. It transformed him, making him look younger, less burdened. "How do you know?" "Years of experience," he said, retrieving a saddle and blanket. "I've worked with horses since I was a boy on my father's farm in Pennsylvania." He demonstrated how to saddle the horse, explaining each step carefully. Then he showed her how to mount, holding Daisy steady as Vanessa awkwardly pulled herself up, thankful she'd chosen a dress with a fuller skirt. "Sit straight, hold the reins gently," he instructed, leading the horse around the corral with a lead rope. "Move with her, don't fight her movements." Vanessa felt precarious at first, but after several circles around the corral, she began to relax, finding the rhythm of the horse's gait. Logan watched her carefully, occasionally correcting her posture or grip. "You're a natural," he said after she'd completed several laps on her own. "I think that's an exaggeration, but thank you," she replied, feeling a small surge of pride. "It's not as difficult as I feared." "We'll take it slow to town," he assured her, mounting his own horse, a powerful black stallion that made Daisy look diminutive in comparison. "Follow my lead." The ride to Whispering Creek was more challenging than the controlled environment of the corral. The uneven terrain and occasional startling wildlife, a jackrabbit bursting from the brush, a hawk swooping overhead, tested Vanessa's newfound skills. But with Logan's patient guidance, they made it to the outskirts of town without incident. Whispering Creek was smaller than she'd imagined, a single main street with wooden boardwalks fronting a collection of businesses. A general store, a saloon, a small hotel, a blacksmith, and various other establishments. At the far end stood a new building under construction, which Logan identified as the schoolhouse. "Not much compared to Boston," he commented as they rode down the main street. "It has a certain charm," Vanessa replied diplomatically, though inwardly she was dismayed by the settlement's size and simplicity. People stopped to watch them pass, nodding respectfully to Logan and eyeing Vanessa with undisguised curiosity. She straightened her spine, meeting their gazes with the poise her mother had drilled into her since childhood. They dismounted in front of the general store, Logan helping her down with strong hands at her waist. The brief contact sent an unexpected warmth through her, which she immediately tried to dismiss. "Mrs. Patterson owns the store," Logan explained as he tied the horses. "She's also the postmistress and town gossip, best to make a good impression." "I'll do my best," Vanessa promised, brushing dust from her skirt. Inside, the store was a marvel of organization, with items from floor to ceiling clothing, tools, foodstuffs, medicines, and various sundries. Behind the counter stood a plump woman with iron gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Logan Lawson, about time you showed your face in town," she called cheerfully. "And who might this be, Mrs. Patterson? This is Miss Vanessa Lockhart, our new school teacher," Logan introduced. "Miss Lockhart, Mrs. Alina Patterson." "A pleasure, Mrs. Patterson," Vanessa said, extending her hand. Mrs. Patterson came around the counter to shake it warmly. "The pleasure's all mine, dear. We've been in desperate need of a teacher since Miss Jenkins left us to marry that cattle baron from Wyoming. The children have been running wild for months. I look forward to meeting them," Vanessa said sincerely. "She's staying at my place until the schoolhouse is finished," Logan explained, and Vanessa didn't miss the raised eyebrow from Mrs. Patterson. "Is she now? Well, that's neighborly of you, Logan." "It was my sister's idea," he said quickly. "Sarah wrote to arrange it before Miss Lockhart arrived." "Ah, that explains it," Mrs. Patterson said, her expression clearing. "Sarah always did have good sense. How is she doing in Helena?" as Logan updated Mrs. Patterson on his sister's life. Vanessa wandered the store, mentally noting items she would need to purchase once she received her first month's salary. The prices were significantly higher than in Boston, a reminder of how remote this place truly was. The bell over the door jingled, and a man entered, tall, well-dressed in a manner that stood out in this frontier town. His eyes landed on Vanessa immediately, a predatory gleam in them that made her instinctively step back. "Well, well," he said smoothly, removing his hat. "You must be the new schoolteacher, Victor Clayton, at your service." He extended his hand. "I own the Silver Spur Saloon and several mining interests in the area." Before Vanessa could respond, Logan was beside her, his presence solid and reassuring. "Clayton," he acknowledged coldly. "Lawson," Clayton replied with equal frost. "I see you're escorting our new arrival around town." "Miss Lockhart is staying at my cabin until the schoolhouse is completed," Logan said, his tone making it clear the subject wasn't open for discussion. Clayton's eyebrows rose. "Is that so? How?" "Unconventional." Vanessa felt a flush of embarrassment but lifted her chin. "Mr. Lawson has kindly offered his sister's former room as temporary accommodation. It's a perfectly respectable arrangement." Of course," Clayton said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I simply meant that someone of your obvious refinement might be more comfortable at my hotel. I'd be happy to offer you a room, free of charge, as a welcome to our community." "That's very kind, but I've already accepted Mr. Lawson's hospitality," Vanessa replied firmly. Clayton's smile tightened. "As you wish. The offer stands should you change your mind." He tipped his hat. "Mrs. Patterson, I'll collect those supplies we discussed later." "Good day, Miss Lockhart." Lawson. After he left, an uncomfortable silence fell over the store. "Don't mind Victor," Mrs. Patterson said finally. "He's got his fingers in every pie in town and thinks his money gives him rights to whatever or whoever catches his fancy." "We should continue our tour," Logan said tersely. "Good day, Mrs. Patterson." Outside, Vanessa could feel the tension radiating from Logan as he untied the horses. "I take it you and Mr. Clayton are not friends," she observed. Logan's jaw tightened. "Clayton represents everything I left the East to avoid, men who think money can buy anything, including people." He helped her mount Daisy. "Best to keep your distance from him. He doesn't take rejection well." "I'm familiar with the type," she said quietly, thinking of Alexander Harding and the swift retribution that had followed her refusal of his advances. Logan gave her a searching look but didn't press for details. "Let's go meet the Reverend. He chairs the school board." They spent the next few hours meeting various townspeople, the Reverend and his wife, the blacksmith and his family, the doctor, and several parents of future students. Most were welcoming, though Vanessa could sense their reservations about this Eastern lady in their midst. By mid-afternoon, she was exhausted from the constant scrutiny and the physical demands of horseback riding. Logan seemed to notice her fatigue. "One more stop," he said as they rode toward the edge of town. "I want you to see the schoolhouse." The building was nearly complete, a simple but solid structure with large windows for natural light. Beside it stood smaller living quarters, still under construction. The town agreed to build proper accommodations for the teacher, Logan explained as they dismounted. 2 rooms and a small kitchen. Not fancy, but it'll be yours." Vanessa walked to the schoolhouse door, peering inside at the rows of rough-hewn desks and the larger desk at the front. A blackboard covered one wall and bookshelves, still empty, lined another. "It's perfect," she said, surprised to find she meant it. After the imposing grandeur of Worthington Seminary, there was something appealing about this simple, honest space. Logan watched her, his expression unreadable. "It's a far cry from what you're used to." "Perhaps that's not a bad thing," she replied. "Sometimes a fresh start requires a completely different setting." His eyes held hers for a moment longer than necessary. "Sometimes," he agreed quietly. On the ride back to the cabin, Vanessa's muscles protested the unaccustomed activity, and by the time they arrived, she could barely stand when Logan helped her dismount. "A hot bath might help," he suggested, noticing her discomfort. "I'll heat some water." While Logan tended to the horses, Vanessa changed into a simpler dress, wincing with each movement. True to his word, he prepared a bath for her in the small washroom behind the cabin, discreetly leaving her to soak in blessed privacy. The hot water worked wonders, and by the time she emerged, the worst of the stiffness had eased. She found Logan preparing dinner, his sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms tanned by the sun. "Feeling better?" he asked without turning. "Much, thank you." She moved to his side. "May I help?" He hesitated, then nodded toward a bowl of potatoes. "You could peel those if you're up to it." They worked in companionable silence, the simple domestic task oddly comforting after the day's social challenges. When Logan accidentally brushed against her while reaching for a spice on the shelf, Vanessa felt that same unexpected warmth she'd experienced earlier. "Sorry," he murmured, stepping back quickly. "It's quite all right," she replied, focusing intently on the potato in her hand. During dinner, Logan asked about her impressions of the town and its people. "Everyone seems very direct," she said diplomatically. A rare chuckle escaped him. "That's one way of putting it. Folks out here don't have much use for pretense. They judge you on what you do, not where you came from or how you speak." "That's refreshing, actually," Vanessa admitted. "In Boston, your family name and connections determined everything." "And what did the Lockhart name determine for you?" he asked, his perceptiveness catching her off guard. She set down her fork carefully. "It opened doors until it didn't." Seeing his questioning look, she added, "My father was a respected professor at Harvard. Academic royalty, you might say. It provided certain advantages." "Was," Logan prompted gently. Vanessa stared at her plate. "We no longer speak. He disapproved of certain choices I made." Logan didn't press further, and she was grateful for his restraint. The comfortable silence returned as they finished their meal and cleaned up together. Later, as Vanessa prepared for bed, she found herself reflecting on the day. Logan Lawson was nothing like she'd expected. Beneath his rough exterior lay intelligence, sensitivity, and a quiet strength that she found increasingly compelling. Dangerous thoughts for a woman in her position, she reminded herself sternly. She was here to rebuild her life and reputation, not to develop feelings for the first man who showed her kindness. Besides, in 2 weeks she would move into her own quarters. This brief domestic arrangement was temporary, nothing more. Yet as she drifted off to sleep, his words from the previous night echoed in her mind. "It's home with you inside." Simple words that had somehow touched something long dormant within her. The days fell into a pattern. Each morning, Logan would teach Vanessa more about riding, gradually increasing the difficulty until she could confidently handle Daisy on various terrains. In the afternoons, they would ride to town to check on the schoolhouse progress and allow Vanessa to meet more families and future students. She began collecting books and supplies, planning her curriculum based on the varied ages and abilities of her prospective pupils. Logan offered suggestions based on his knowledge of the children and their families, his insights proving invaluable. "The Miller twins haven't had any formal education," he told her as they rode back from town one afternoon. "Their father keeps them working the farm most days, but he's agreed to send them for the winter months at least. And the Blackwood children, I haven't met them yet." Logan's expression darkened. Their mother died last winter, father's been drinking since. They're good kids, just neglected, I see, Vanessa said softly, recognizing the concern behind his gruff exterior. I'll pay special attention to them, he nodded, seemingly satisfied with her response. As they spent more time together, Vanessa discovered layers to Logan that contradicted her initial impression of the taciturn rancher. He was well-read, with opinions on literature that surprised her. In the evenings, they often discussed books from his modest library: Emerson, Thoreau, Dickens, and even Shakespeare. My father valued education, he explained when she commented on his knowledge. Said a man's mind was his most valuable possession, something no one could take from him. He sounds wise, she observed. He was, Logan agreed, a shadow passing over his features. Lost him and my mother to typhoid the year before the war, left me to raise Sarah on my own. You did an admirable job from what I've gathered, Vanessa said gently. Logan shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. Did what needed doing. It was his constant refrain, doing what needed doing. Whether it was repairing the cabin roof before an approaching storm, helping a neighbor round up stray cattle, or teaching Vanessa to ride, Logan approached life with a steady, reliable dedication that Vanessa found increasingly admirable and dangerous to her peace of mind. Because with each passing day she found herself more drawn to him, the way his rare smile transformed his face, the gentleness in his hands when he tended an injured foal, the quiet respect with which he treated her opinions and ideas. Even his silence had become comfortable, a space where she felt no pressure to perform or pretend. It was nothing like the calculated courtship she'd experienced with Alexander in Boston, all flowery words and grand gestures designed for public consumption. This was quieter, more authentic, and all the more powerful for its simplicity. A week into her stay, they encountered Victor Clayton again while in town. He cornered Vanessa outside the general store while Logan was speaking with the blacksmith across the street. "Miss Lockhart," Clayton said, tipping his hat, "you're looking particularly lovely today." "Mr. Clayton," she acknowledged coolly. "I've been hoping to speak with you privately," he continued, moving closer than propriety dictated. "I'm hosting a dinner at my home this Saturday for some of the town's more cultured residents. I'd be honored if you would attend as my special guest." "That's very kind, but I'm still settling in," Vanessa replied, taking a step back. Clayton smiled, revealing teeth too perfect to be natural. "All the more reason to come. You need proper introductions, not just the haphazard meetings Lawson has arranged. I have connections that could make your position here much more comfortable." "I'm quite comfortable already, thank you." His smile tightened. "Are you?" "In that primitive cabin with a man whose idea of civilization is occasionally changing his shirt. You deserve better, Miss Lockhart. Anyone can see you're a woman of refinement, accustomed to finer things." "Mr. Lawson has been nothing but courteous and helpful," Vanessa said firmly. "I won't hear him spoken of disrespectfully." Clayton's eyes narrowed. "I see he's already charmed you. Be careful, Miss Lockhart. Lawson has a history of violence that might surprise you. Did he tell you why he really left the East after the war?" It wasn't just for open spaces and quiet, as he likes to claim. Before Vanessa could respond, Logan appeared beside her, his expression stormy. "Everything all right here?" "Perfectly fine," Clayton said smoothly. "I was just inviting Miss Lockhart to a dinner party." "And I was declining," Vanessa added quickly. Logan's gaze flicked between them, settling on Clayton with barely concealed hostility. "We should be heading back, Miss Lockhart. Storms brewing." Indeed, dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, the air heavy with impending rain. Vanessa nodded, relieved for the excuse to end the uncomfortable encounter. "Another time, perhaps," Clayton said, his eyes conveying a challenge to Logan rather than address her. "Good day to you both." As they rode back toward the cabin, the first fat raindrops began to fall. Logan urged their horses to a faster pace, but within minutes, the skies opened in a deluge that soaked them both. They reached the cabin just as thunder cracked overhead. Logan quickly stabled the horses while Vanessa hurried inside, dripping onto the wooden floor. She was shivering by the time Logan entered, carrying an armful of firewood. "You're freezing," he observed, immediately building up the fire. "You should change before you catch your death." Vanessa nodded, teeth chattering, and retreated to her room. Her fingers fumbled with the wet buttons of her dress, stiff and uncooperative from cold. After several frustrating attempts, she realized she couldn't manage on her own. Taking a deep breath, she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and opened her door. "Mr. Lawson, I find myself in need of assistance." Logan looked up from the fire, his own clothes still dripping. "What do you need?" "I can't unfasten my dress," she admitted, embarrassment warming her cheeks despite her chill. "The buttons are too difficult with cold fingers." He hesitated, clearly understanding the impropriety of what she was asking. "Are you certain?" "I have little choice unless I wish to remain in these wet clothes," she said practically. "I trust you to be a gentleman." Logan approached slowly, as if giving her time to reconsider. When she turned her back to him, presenting the row of buttons, she heard his sharp intake of breath. "Just the top ones," she clarified. "I can manage the rest once those are done." His fingers worked carefully at the small buttons, occasionally brushing against her skin through the wet fabric. Each touch sent a shiver through her that had nothing to do with the cold. "There," he said after unfastening several, his voice sounded strained. "Can you manage now?" "Yes, thank you," she whispered, not turning around. "I'll change as well," he said, retreating to his own room. Vanessa quickly finished undressing and changed into dry clothes, her mind racing with the intimacy of what had just transpired. Such a small thing, really, yet loaded with unspoken significance. When she emerged, Logan had also changed and was preparing hot coffee. He had added several logs to the fire, which now blazed cheerfully, pushing back the gloom of the storm-darkened afternoon. "Thank you for your help," she said, accepting the steaming cup he offered. "Of course," he replied, his eyes not quite meeting hers. They sat before the fire, the silence between them charged in a way it hadn't been before. Finally, Vanessa gathered her courage to ask the question that had been bothering her since their encounter with Clayton. "Mr. Lawson, Logan, may I ask you something personal?" He looked at her then, wariness in his gaze. "You may ask, I might not answer." "Mr. Clayton suggested there was some reason you left the East beyond what you've told me, something violent." Logan's expression hardened. "Clayton should mind his own business." "He was trying to warn me against you," Vanessa pressed gently. "I'd like to hear your side." For a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer, then, staring into the flames, he began to speak. "After the war, I went back to Pennsylvania. Found work as a foreman at a steel mill owned by a man named Hollister. Good job, good pay." He paused, his knuckles white around his coffee cup. "Hollister's son took an interest in Sarah. She was 16, beautiful. I told her to stay away from him, he had a reputation. But Hollister's son always got what he wanted." Vanessa's heart sank, guessing where this story was heading. One night, Sarah didn't come home, found her the next morning, beaten, clothes torn. His voice was flat, emotionless, but Vanessa could see the pain in his eyes. "She told me who did it. I went to Hollister, demanded justice. He laughed, offered me money to keep quiet." Logan set down his cup, staring at his hands. "I found the son at a tavern that night, bragging to his friends. I didn't plan what happened next. Just knew I couldn't let him walk away untouched while my sister suffered." "What did you do?" Vanessa asked softly. "Beat him within an inch of his life," Logan said simply. "Would have killed him if others hadn't pulled me off. Hollister swore he'd see me hang. Sheriff was in his pocket." "Sarah and I left that night, headed west, never stopped until we reached Montana territory." Vanessa absorbed his story, understanding now the shadows that sometimes darkened his eyes. "You were protecting your sister." "Doesn't justify what I did," he said. "Lost control. Became something I didn't recognize, something I never wanted to be again." "Is that why you live so far from town? Why you keep to yourself?" He nodded. "Safer that way, for everyone." Without thinking, Vanessa reached across and took his hand. "I don't believe you're dangerous, Logan." "Not to me, not to anyone who doesn't threaten those you care about." His fingers tightened around hers. "You don't know that. I've lived here for a week," she countered. "I've seen how you treat your horses, how you speak to children in town, how patient you've been teaching me to ride." Those aren't the actions of a violent man. Logan looked at their joined hands, then up at her face. Something shifted in his expression, a softening, a vulnerability she hadn't seen before. Why did your father disown you, Vanessa? The sudden change of subject and his use of her given name momentarily threw her. But fair was fair. He had shared his past. She owed him the same honesty. I trusted the wrong man, she said simply. Alexander Harding was from one of Boston's oldest families. He courted me publicly, properly. My father approved, but in private Alexander wanted more than I was willing to give before marriage. She stared into the fire, finding it easier than meeting Logan's gaze. When I refused him, he spread rumors that I had compromised myself with him and then tried to trap him into marriage. His family had more influence than mine. People believed him. I lost my teaching position, my friends, my standing in society. My father believed him too, or at least believed I must have done something to encourage such behavior. He called me a disgrace to the Lockhart name. He was wrong, Logan said fiercely. Vanessa looked up, surprised by the vehemence in his voice. The man was wrong, and your father was wrong, Logan continued. No decent man would dishonor a woman that way, either in deed or word. Thank you, she whispered, oddly moved by his indignation on her behalf. No one, not even her cousin Eliza, had expressed such unequivocal support. Outside, the storm raged on, rain lashing against the windows, thunder rolling across the valley. But inside the cabin, something had changed between them, a new understanding, a deeper connection forged through shared confidences. Logan still held her hand, his thumb unconsciously tracing circles on her skin. Vanessa, he said, her name like a question on his lips. Yes. She breathed, aware of how improper this was, yet unable to pull away. Before he could continue, a tremendous crash of thunder shook the cabin, making them both jump. The moment broken, Logan released her hand and stood. Storm's getting worse, he said, moving to check the windows. Creek might flood if this keeps up. Vanessa felt simultaneously relieved and disappointed by the interruption. What had she been hoping for? What had he been about to say? The rest of the evening passed in careful politeness, both avoiding any return to the intimacy they had briefly shared. When Vanessa retired to her room, she lay awake listening to the storm, replaying their conversation and wondering what might have happened if the thunder hadn't intervened. The storm continued through the night and into the next day, keeping them confined to the cabin. Logan spent the morning checking for leaks and reinforcing the windows, while Vanessa occupied herself with lesson plans for her future students. By afternoon, cabin fever had set in, and Vanessa found herself restless. Logan seemed to notice, pulling a worn chess set from a cupboard. "You play?" he asked. "My father taught me," she replied, surprised by the suggestion. Chess had been one of the few activities they had shared during her childhood. They set up the board on the table and soon were engaged in a closely matched game. Vanessa found Logan to be a thoughtful, strategic player, methodical rather than flashy, but effective. They were evenly matched, which clearly pleased him. "You play well," he commented after she captured his knight with a clever maneuver. "So do you," she returned. "Where did you learn?" "My father taught me too," he said. "During long winter evenings on the farm, said it built character and foresight." "Mine said similar things," Vanessa smiled, "though he was far less patient when I made mistakes. Strict man, very. Excellence was expected, not praised." She moved her bishop. Check. Logan studied the board, frowning. Didn't see that coming. He moved his king out of danger. "Your father sounds like a difficult man to please." "He was," Vanessa agreed, contemplating her next move. "Nothing was ever quite good enough. My mother died when I was young, and afterwards he retreated into his academic world. I think he never quite knew what to do with a daughter." "So you became what he wanted," Logan guessed. "I tried," she admitted. "Perfect grades, perfect manners, perfect accomplishments. Piano, French, watercolors, all the things a proper young lady should master." She moved her queen. "It never seemed to matter." "Until you finally disappointed him by refusing to sacrifice your honor," Logan observed, his voice gentle. Vanessa looked up, struck by his insight. "Yes, I suppose that's exactly what happened." "His loss," Logan said simply, countering her move. Checkmate in 3. Vanessa examined the board, seeing the trap he'd set while she was distracted by conversation. Well played, she conceded. Another game. They played well into the evening, conversation flowing more easily between them. By the time they retired for the night, the awkwardness from the previous day had dissipated, replaced by a growing companionship that Vanessa found both comforting and exhilarating. The storm finally broke during the night, and morning brought clear skies and a freshly washed landscape. After breakfast, Logan suggested they ride out to check on the creek and his cattle. The lower pastures might be flooded, he explained. Need to make sure the herd moved to higher ground. Vanessa readily agreed, eager to be outside after their confinement. The air was clean and crisp, the world seemingly renewed by the storm. She found herself enjoying the ride, comfortable now on Daisy's back, appreciating the wild beauty of Logan's land. They crested a hill to find the valley below partially submerged, the creek having overflowed its banks. In the distance, cattle grazed safely on higher ground. They know to move themselves, Logan said approvingly. Smart animals. It's beautiful, Vanessa said, taking in the view. From this vantage point, she could see for miles rolling hills, distant mountains, and Logan's cabin, small but sturdy against the vast landscape. This is my favorite spot on the property, Logan admitted. I come here to think sometimes. I can see why, Vanessa replied. It puts everything in perspective. They dismounted to rest the horses, sitting on a fallen log while the animals grazed nearby. A comfortable silence fell between them, both content to simply exist in this moment, in this place. I've been thinking, Logan said finally. The schoolhouse should be finished next week. Your quarters too? Yes, Vanessa agreed, feeling an unexpected pang at the reminder that their current arrangement was temporary. I checked with the carpenter yesterday. He thinks 5 more days, weather permitting. Logan nodded, staring out at the horizon. You'll be more comfortable there, proper place for a teacher. Your cabin has been perfectly adequate, she assured him. More than adequate, you've been very kind to share your home with me. He turned to look at her then, his blue eyes intense. It's been different having someone there, better. For me as well, she admitted softly. Something shifted in his expression, a decision made, perhaps. Vanessa, I'm not good with words like this, but a gunshot cracked in the distance, startling them both. Logan was immediately on his feet, scanning the horizon with narrowed eyes. That came from near the north boundary, he said tensely. Where my land meets Clayton's. Could it be Hunter's? Vanessa suggested. Not on my property, Logan replied grimly. He helped her quickly to her feet. We should head back. I'll need to check it out. They rode back to the cabin at a faster pace than Vanessa was entirely comfortable with, but she managed to keep up. At the cabin, Logan retrieved his rifle from above the door. Stay here, he instructed. I won't be long. Be careful, she urged, suddenly afraid for him. If it's Mr. Clayton, I can handle Clayton, Logan assured her, his expression softening briefly. Lock the door after me. Vanessa watched from the window as he rode away, concern knotting her stomach. Whatever Logan had been about to say on the hillside had seemed important, and now she might never know what it was. The hours crawled by as she waited for his return. She tried to occupy herself with lesson plans, but her mind kept conjuring scenarios involving Logan and Clayton in violent confrontation. By late afternoon, her worry had grown to genuine fear. Just as she was considering riding out to look for him, a foolish idea given her limited knowledge of the property, she heard hoofbeats approaching. Relief flooded her as she recognized Logan, but it quickly turned to alarm when she saw he wasn't alone. 2 riders accompanied him, a man slumped in his saddle and a young woman supporting him. Logan dismounted quickly and helped the injured man down. Vanessa opened the door. What happened? Rustlers, Logan explained tersely. Shot Evan Harper when he caught them driving off some of his cattle. Found him and his daughter Rebecca trying to make it back to their ranch. Inside, quickly, Vanessa directed, clearing the table. Lay him here. Logan and Rebecca helped Evan onto the table. The man was pale, his shirt soaked with blood from a wound in his shoulder. I need hot water, clean cloths, Vanessa instructed, falling back on the first aid training she'd received at Worthington Seminary. And whiskey if you have it. Logan moved quickly to comply while Rebecca hovered anxiously by her father's side. The girl couldn't be more than 17, with blonde hair escaping from a practical braid and frightened eyes in a dirt-smudged face. "He's going to be all right," Vanessa assured her, though she wasn't certain of that at all. "We need to clean the wound and stop the bleeding." "Thank you, madam," Rebecca said shakily. "Pa tried to fight them off, but there were 3 of them. Did you recognize any of them?" Logan asked, returning with the supplies Vanessa had requested. Rebecca shook her head. "They wore bandanas over their faces. But they knew what they were doing, picked the best of our herd." Vanessa began cleaning Evan's wound, revealing a nasty but relatively clean bullet hole. "It went through," she observed with relief. "That's good, no bullet to remove." "Will he live?" Rebecca asked bluntly. "If we prevent infection, yes," Vanessa replied. "I'm going to clean it thoroughly with whiskey. It will hurt, but it's necessary." Evan groaned when the alcohol hit his wound, his eyes fluttering open. "Rebecca," he called weakly. "I'm here, Pa," the girl said, grasping his hand. "The cattle, don't worry about the cattle now," Logan interjected. "Focus on getting better." Vanessa bandaged the wound as best she could, using clean strips of cloth. "He needs a doctor," she told Logan quietly. "Nearest one's in Helena," Logan replied. 3 days' ride. "Then we'll have to manage here," Vanessa decided. "He can't be moved that far in his condition." Logan nodded. "Rebecca can take my room. I'll bunk in the barn." "No need," Vanessa said quickly. "Rebecca can share with me." After settling Evan on Logan's bed and making Rebecca comfortable in Vanessa's room, they convened in the main room to discuss the situation. "This is the 3rd rustling incident in 2 months," Logan said gravely. "Usually they just take the cattle and run. Harper's the first one who got shot." "Do you think it's random or targeted?" Vanessa asked. Logan shook his head. "Not sure, but it's getting more dangerous. I want you to be careful, especially when I'm not around." "You think I might be in danger?" she asked, surprised. "I think everyone with anything worth taking is in danger," he replied. "And you're worth more than most." The statement hung between them, heavy with meaning. Before Vanessa could respond, Rebecca emerged from the bedroom. "Pa's asleep," she reported. "Fever's starting, I think." "I'll prepare a willow bark tea," Vanessa said, grateful for the distraction. "It helps reduce fever." The next 2 days fell into a pattern centered around caring for Evan. His fever rose and fell, but the wound showed no signs of infection. Vanessa and Rebecca took turns sitting with him, while Logan rode out to inform the neighboring ranchers of the attack and organize increased vigilance. On the evening of the 2nd day, with Evan finally resting comfortably and Rebecca asleep beside him, Vanessa sat by the fire, exhaustion weighing heavily on her shoulders. Logan entered quietly from checking the horses. "You should rest," he said, noting her fatigue. "You've barely slept in 2 days." "I'm fine," she insisted, though a yawn betrayed her. Logan sat beside her, closer than propriety might allow, but such concerns seemed trivial after what they'd been through together. "You've been amazing," he said softly. "The way you took charge, knew exactly what to do. Harper would have died without your help." "I'm not sure that's true," she demurred, "but thank you." "I mean it, Vanessa." His voice was low, intimate in the firelit room. "You're remarkable." She looked up at him, warmed by more than the fire. "So are you. The way you found them, brought them here, organized the ranchers. You care about these people." "They're my neighbors," he said simply, as if that explained everything, and perhaps for Logan it did. Without conscious thought, Vanessa leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. She felt his momentary surprise, then his arm came around her, holding her gently. "I was worried when you didn't return promptly," she confessed. "After the gunshot." "I'm sorry for that," he murmured, his breath stirring her hair. "I didn't mean to frighten you." "What were you going to say?" she asked suddenly. "Up on the hill before we heard the shot, you were about to tell me something." Logan was silent for so long that Vanessa thought he might not answer. Then, his voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I was going to ask if you might consider staying, not at the cabin necessarily, but nearby in my life." Vanessa's heart quickened. You barely know me." "I know enough," he replied. "I know you're brave and kind, smart and capable. I know you make this place feel like a home, not just somewhere I live. I know I've never met anyone like you." She turned to face him, their faces close in the firelight. "Logan, you don't need to answer now," he said quickly. "It's too soon. I know that. Just think about it, please." Instead of answering with words, Vanessa did something that would have scandalized Boston society. She leaned forward and pressed her lips gently to his. The kiss was brief, chaste, but filled with promise. When she pulled back, Logan looked stunned, then a slow smile spread across his face, the most open, unguarded expression she'd seen from him. "I'll think about it," she promised softly. The next morning, Evan's fever broke, and by afternoon he was alert enough to eat a light meal. The crisis had passed, and with it, some of the intensity of the previous days. Logan and Vanessa maintained a careful distance in Rebecca's presence, but their shared glances spoke volumes. "Sheriff's coming tomorrow to take Harper's statement," Logan informed Vanessa as they washed dishes together. "Then I'll take them home if Evan's strong enough." "That seems reasonable," she agreed. "Rebecca says they have a hired hand who can help once they're back at their ranch." "Good." "And the schoolhouse is ready," Logan added, watching her reaction carefully. "Reverend Jenkins sent word this morning. Your quarters will be habitable by tomorrow as well." "Oh," Vanessa said, feeling strangely bereft at the news. "That's wonderful." "Is it?" Logan asked quietly. She met his gaze. "It's what we've been waiting for, isn't it?" "Is it what you want?" Vanessa hesitated, aware they were stepping into uncertain territory. "I want to teach. That's why I came here." "And now, is that still all you want?" Before she could answer, Rebecca entered the kitchen, and they quickly resumed their task. The moment lost. The sheriff arrived the next morning, a gruff, competent man named Marshall who took Evan's statement efficiently and promised to investigate the rustling. "Might be connected to the other incidents," he told Logan. "Same pattern, small operation, targeting isolated ranches, taking only the best stock. Professional job." "Any suspects?" Logan asked. The sheriff shrugged. "Nothing concrete." "But there's rumors Clayton's shipping more cattle than he's raising." "Clayton?" Vanessa couldn't help her surprise. "Victor Clayton from town, the very same," Marshall confirmed. "Can't prove anything yet, but where there's smoke." After the sheriff left, Logan helped Evan into the wagon he'd borrowed from a neighbor. Rebecca climbed up beside her father, turning to Vanessa with genuine gratitude. "Thank you for everything, Miss Lockhart," she said warmly. "You saved Pa's life." "It was my pleasure to help," Vanessa replied. "I'll visit once you're settled back home." "We'd like that," Evan said, his voice still weak but determined. "You too, Lawson. We owe you both." "Neighbors help neighbors," Logan said simply, securing a blanket around Evan's shoulders. "That's how we survive out here." As the wagon pulled away, Logan turned to Vanessa. "I should get you to town, to your new quarters." "Yes," she agreed, though with less enthusiasm than the situation warranted. "I should get settled before classes begin on Monday." They rode to town in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. The schoolhouse looked even better completed, painted white with green trim, large windows gleaming in the afternoon sun. The teachers' quarters attached to the rear were modest but neat, with a separate entrance for privacy. Inside, Vanessa found a small sitting room, bedroom, and kitchen, simple but clean, with new furniture provided by the town. Several of the mothers had left welcoming touches, curtains at the windows, a quilt on the bed, a vase of wildflowers on the table. "It's lovely," she said, genuinely appreciative of the community's efforts. Logan brought in her trunk and few belongings from his cabin. "Do you need help unpacking?" "No, thank you, I can manage." She stood awkwardly in the center of her new home, suddenly uncertain how to act with him. They weren't at his cabin anymore, where their growing closeness had seemed natural. Here in town, surrounded by neighbors and expectations, everything felt different. Logan seemed to sense her discomfort. "I should go, let you get settled." "Yes, of course." She walked him to the door, painfully aware of how formal they had become with each other. "Thank you for everything, Logan. Your hospitality, your help." He nodded, his expression guarded once more. "I'll check on you in a few days, make sure you're getting on all right." "That would be nice." He hesitated, then turned to leave. Vanessa watched him mount his horse and ride away, a hollow feeling growing in her chest. Something precious had been left unresolved between them, and she didn't know how to recapture it. The weekend passed in a flurry of preparation for her first day of teaching. Several parents brought their children to meet her, allowing Vanessa to begin assessing their educational levels. The work was engaging, but in quiet moments, her thoughts returned to Logan and the cabin that had briefly felt like home. Monday morning arrived bright and clear. Vanessa dressed carefully in her most professional attire, a navy blue dress with white collar and cuffs, her hair pinned neatly at the nape of her neck. She wanted to make a good impression on her first official day. The classroom filled quickly with excited, nervous children. 15 pupils, as Logan had said, ranging from 6-year-old Mary Jenkins, the Reverend's daughter, to 16-year-old Thomas Blackwood, whose sullen demeanor couldn't quite hide his intelligence. Vanessa introduced herself and began the process of evaluating each child's abilities. As Logan had warned, their educational backgrounds varied dramatically. Some could barely recognize letters, while others read fluently. By lunchtime, she had formed a preliminary plan for grouping them according to skill level rather than age. She was so absorbed in her work that she almost missed the commotion outside during the afternoon lesson. Raised voices drew her to the window, where she saw Victor Clayton confronting Logan in the street, their postures tense with hostility. "Continue with your reading," she instructed the class, moving swiftly to the door. "I'll be right back." Outside, she caught fragments of their heated exchange. "Accusations without proof," Clayton was saying, his face flushed with anger. "Sheriff has enough to ask questions," Logan replied evenly. "I'm just saying people are watching." "Is that a threat, Lawson?" Clayton stepped closer, one hand hovering near the gun at his hip. "Gentlemen," Vanessa called sharply, descending the schoolhouse steps. "This is a place of learning. Take your disagreement elsewhere, please." Both men turned, Clayton smoothing his expression into a smile, Logan's face remaining grim. "Miss Lockhart," Clayton greeted her smoothly. "My apologies for disturbing your class. Lawson here was just leaving." "Actually, I came to see Miss Lockhart," Logan stated, his eyes never leaving Clayton. "Private matter." Clayton's smile tightened. "Another time, perhaps, when you're not spreading baseless rumors about respectable businessmen." He tipped his hat to Vanessa and strode away, his back rigid with barely controlled fury. "What was that about?" Vanessa asked once Clayton was out of earshot. "Sheriff's questioning Clayton about the rustling," Logan explained. "Thought he should know people are suspicious." "Was that wise?" "Confronting him directly," Logan shrugged. "Wanted to see his reaction, told me plenty." Vanessa glanced back at the schoolhouse, where curious faces pressed against the windows. "I should get back to my students. Was there something you needed to see me about?" For a moment, Logan looked uncertain, almost vulnerable, then his expression closed again. "Just wanted to make sure you were settling in all right." "I am, thank you," she replied, wishing they could recapture the ease they'd shared at the cabin. "The children are wonderful." "Challenging, but eager to learn." "Good." He nodded, then gestured to a package tied to his saddle. "Brought you something, thought it might help." Curious, Vanessa accepted the parcel wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a set of books readers of various levels, arithmetic primers, and a beautifully illustrated atlas. "Logan, these are wonderful," she breathed, genuinely touched. "Where did you get them?" "Ordered them from Helena weeks ago," he admitted. "For the school, they just arrived." "The children will be thrilled," she said, hugging the books to her chest. "Thank you," he nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "Well, I should let you get back to teaching." "Yes, of course." She hesitated, then added, "Perhaps you could come for dinner someday this week." "To thank you properly for all your help." The invitation surprised them both. Logan's eyebrows rose slightly, but he quickly nodded. "I'd like that. Friday?" "Friday would be perfect," she smiled, feeling some of the awkwardness between them dissipate. "Around 6, I'll be there." He touched the brim of his hat and turned to go, then paused. "Vanessa?" "Yes, you look right standing there like you belong." Before she could respond, he mounted his horse and rode away, leaving her with a curious mixture of emotions, pleasure at his compliment, anticipation of Friday, and a lingering sense that something important remained unresolved between them. The rest of the week passed in a blur of teaching, planning, and settling into her new role in the community. The books Logan had brought proved invaluable, allowing her to create more tailored lessons for her diverse group of students. By Friday, she felt she was making real progress, particularly with the Blackwood children, who showed remarkable aptitude once given proper attention. As the last student left that afternoon, Vanessa found herself both anticipating and dreading Logan's visit. She had cleaned her small quarters thoroughly and prepared a special meal venison stew with dumplings, fresh bread, and an apple pie purchased from Mrs. Patterson, who had become a friend and ally. She changed into her best everyday dress, a forest green that brought out the gold in her hazel eyes and pinned her hair more softly than her teaching style. At precisely 6 o'clock, a knock sounded at her door. Logan stood on her step, freshly shaven, his usual worn flannel replaced with a clean white shirt under his leather vest. He held a small bouquet of wildflowers. "These were growing near the creek," he said, offering them somewhat awkwardly. "Thought you might like them." "They're beautiful," Vanessa said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Please come in." The small quarters felt even smaller with Logan's tall frame filling the space. He removed his hat, looking around with interest. "You've made it homey," he observed, noting the touches she'd added, her books arranged on the shelf, a shawl draped over the chair, the wildflowers now arranged in a jar on the table. "I'm trying," she admitted. "It's starting to feel like mine." Dinner proved less awkward than she'd feared. Logan asked about her students, genuinely interested in their progress. Vanessa found herself describing each child's personality and abilities with enthusiasm. "Thomas Blackwood is particularly bright," she told him. "He pretends indifference, but I caught him reading ahead in the history book during lunch." His father was the same way, Logan recalled. Before the drinking, sharp mind, too proud to show it. "The younger children adore him," Vanessa continued. "He helps them when he thinks I'm not looking." "Community takes care of its own," Logan said approvingly. "You're teaching them more than books." "I hope so," she replied, warmed by his understanding. "That's the most important lesson, isn't it? How to be part of something larger than yourself." Logan nodded, his eyes holding hers across the table. "Something I had to learn the hard way." After dinner, they sat before the small fireplace, the conversation flowing more naturally than it had since they'd left his cabin. Logan told her about his cattle, his plans for expanding his herd, the improvements he wanted to make to the ranch. Vanessa shared her ideas for the school, her hopes for her students, her gradual adjustment to life in Whispering Creek. "The town's growing on me," she admitted. "It's nothing like Boston, but there's an honesty to it I find refreshing." "People are who they are here," Logan agreed. "No pretense." "Except perhaps Mr. Clayton," Vanessa observed. "Have there been any developments regarding the rustling?" Logan's expression darkened. "Sheriff's still investigating. Clayton's denying everything, of course, but his foreman's been spending freely in Helena, money he shouldn't have. Do you think it will be resolved soon? Hard to say. Evidence is difficult to gather. But the rustlings stopped since Harper was shot, which tells me they're being cautious." The clock on the mantel chimed 9, startling them both with the lateness of the hour. "I should go," Logan said, rising reluctantly. "Early start tomorrow." Vanessa walked him to the door, suddenly reluctant to see him leave. "Thank you for coming, and for the flowers. Thank you for dinner." He hesitated, then added, "I've missed our conversations." "So have I," she admitted softly. He studied her face in the lamplight, his expression open in a way it rarely was. "Vanessa, I meant what I said at the cabin, about wanting you in my life." "I know," she whispered. "I've been thinking about it, about us." And his voice was carefully neutral, but his eyes betrayed his hope. Before she could answer, a commotion erupted in the street, shouts, running footsteps, the clang of the town's fire bell. Logan was instantly alert, opening the door to see people running toward the north end of town, where an orange glow illuminated the night sky. "Fire," he said grimly. "Stay here, I'll check it out." "I'm coming with you," Vanessa insisted, grabbing her shawl. "I have students in those homes." They joined the stream of townspeople heading toward the blaze. As they drew closer, Vanessa gasped in horror. The general store was engulfed in flames, the fire spreading rapidly to neighboring buildings. "Mrs. Patterson," she cried, searching the crowd for the storekeeper. "Here, dear," Mrs. Patterson called, waving from across the street. She looked shaken but unharmed. "I was at the church social, thank the Lord." The town had organized a bucket brigade, passing water from the well to the burning buildings. Logan immediately joined the men fighting the blaze, while Vanessa helped corral frightened children and comfort distraught mothers. "It's Clayton's work," a voice muttered nearby. Vanessa turned to see Thomas Blackwood, his young face hard with certainty. "What makes you say that?" she asked quietly. The boy glanced around, then leaned closer. "Heard his foreman talking to someone behind our barn yesterday. Said the boss wanted to send a message to someone who'd been asking too many questions." "Did you tell the sheriff this?" Thomas shook his head. "Pa says we don't get involved in other folks' business, but Mrs. Patterson's always been kind to us, giving us credit when Pa drinks away the money. Ain't right she loses everything." "You should tell Sheriff Marshall what you heard," Vanessa urged. "It's important." The boy looked uncertain, then nodded slowly. "Maybe if you come with me." "I will," she promised. "Tomorrow morning, first thing." Despite the town's efforts, the general store couldn't be saved. By dawn, it was a smoldering ruin, along with the barbershop next door. Miraculously, no one had been seriously injured, though several men sported burns and smoke-related injuries. Logan found Vanessa as the crowd began to disperse, his face streaked with soot, his clothes singed in places. "Are you all right?" she asked anxiously. "Fine," he assured her, though he looked exhausted. "Just need some water and rest." "Come back to my quarters," she insisted. "I can clean those burns properly." Too tired to argue, Logan followed her. In her small kitchen, Vanessa gently washed the soot from his face and hands, applying salve to the minor burns on his forearms. "You're good at this," he murmured, his eyes half closed with fatigue. "I had plenty of practice with Evan Harper," she reminded him. "Though you're a far more cooperative patient," a ghost of a smile touched his lips. Too tired to be difficult. Once his injuries were tended, Vanessa made him tea laced with whiskey. "Drink this, then you should rest before riding home." Logan accepted the cup gratefully. "Thank you." He took a long sip, then said, "This wasn't an accident, Vanessa. Someone started that fire deliberately." "I know," she replied quietly. "Thomas Blackwood overheard something that suggests Clayton might be behind it." Logan's eyes sharpened. "What did he hear?" She related Thomas's story about the overheard conversation. "We're going to speak with the sheriff in the morning." "I'll come with you," Logan said firmly. "Clayton's dangerous, if he thinks the boy can identify his foreman." "I hadn't considered that," Vanessa admitted, concern for her student flooding her. "Perhaps I should check on the Blackwood children now." "No," Logan said, setting down his cup. "It's still dark and you're exhausted. Get some rest." "I'll stay here on your sofa and escort you to the Blackwoods at first light." Propriety dictated she should refuse, but concern for Thomas and his siblings outweighed social convention. "All right," she agreed. "I'll get you a blanket." She retired to her bedroom, but found sleep elusive despite her exhaustion. The image of the burning buildings, the frightened faces of her students, and Logan's soot-streaked visage kept her mind racing. And beneath it all ran the unfinished conversation they'd been having before the fire about their feelings, their future. At dawn, they set out for the Blackwood farm on the outskirts of town. The small, run-down cabin seemed quiet as they approached. "Something's wrong," Logan said suddenly, his posture tense. "No smoke from the chimney." He dismounted quickly, approaching the cabin with caution. Vanessa followed, her heart pounding with apprehension. The door stood ajar, the interior dark and silent. Logan pushed it open wider, revealing an empty room with signs of hasty departure, drawers left open, items scattered on the floor. "They're gone," Vanessa whispered, dismayed. "All of them." Logan examined the room with a practiced eye, left in a hurry not more than a few hours ago. He picked up a child's doll abandoned on the floor. "They didn't take everything, were scared most likely." We need to tell the sheriff, Vanessa decided. If Clayton's men threaten them, first we need to find them, Logan countered. They couldn't have gone far on foot with 3 young children. Sheriff's office later. They searched the surrounding area, finding footprints leading toward the creek that ran behind the property. Logan tracked them easily, his experience as a rancher evident in the way he read the subtle signs most would miss. The trail led to a small cave in the hillside above the creek, well hidden by brush. Logan approached cautiously, calling out, "Thomas, it's Logan Lawson and Miss Lockhart." "You're safe." A moment of silence, then Thomas emerged from the cave, a pistol clutched in his trembling hand. Behind him, his younger siblings peered out fearfully. "Put the gun down, son," Logan said gently. "We're here to help." The boy lowered the weapon, his face showing relief mixed with wariness. "They came last night," he explained, his voice shaking slightly. "2 men, said if we knew what was good for us, we'd forget what we heard and leave town." "Where's your father?" Vanessa asked, noticing his absence. "Passed out drunk at the saloon, probably," Thomas said bitterly. "Wasn't home when they came." Vanessa's heart ached for these children forced to fend for themselves in the face of danger. "You did right to hide," she assured Thomas, "but you're safe now. We'll take you somewhere secure." "My cabin," Logan decided. "It's isolated, easily defended. Clayton's men won't find you there." Thomas hesitated, looking at his younger siblings Sarah, 10, and James, 8, both wide-eyed with fear and exhaustion. "We don't want to be no trouble." "It's no trouble," Vanessa assured him. "Mr. Lawson is right. His ranch is the safest place for you right now." Logan helped gather the few possessions the children had brought with them. "I'll take them to the cabin," he told Vanessa. "You go to the sheriff, tell him what's happened, but be careful, don't go alone." "I'll ask Reverend Jenkins to accompany me," she promised. They parted at the edge of town, Logan leading the Blackwood children toward his ranch while Vanessa headed for the church to find the Reverend. With his support, she related the entire story to Sheriff Marshall, who listened with growing concern. "Been suspecting Clayton for months," he admitted, "but he's careful, covers his tracks. This is the first real evidence connecting him to both the rustling and the fire." "Those children are in danger," Vanessa emphasized, "and now their father is missing as well." "I'll find Blackwood," the sheriff promised, "and I'll gather some men to pay Clayton a visit. Reverend, would you escort Miss Lockhart back to her quarters and stay with her until I send word?" "Of course," the Reverend agreed readily. "No," Vanessa objected. "I want to go to Mr. Lawson's ranch. The children know me, they'll be frightened without a familiar face." The sheriff considered her request, then nodded reluctantly. "Reverend, can you take her there and stay until I come? Don't want to leave anyone unprotected while Clayton's men are acting bold." The journey to Logan's ranch was tense, both Vanessa and the Reverend scanning the landscape for signs of pursuit. When they arrived, Logan met them at the door, rifle in hand. "Children are inside," he reported. "Fed them and put them down for a nap. They're exhausted." Vanessa hurried inside to check on them, finding all 3 asleep in Logan's bed, their faces finally peaceful. She rejoined the men in the main room, where the Reverend was updating Logan on their conversation with the sheriff. "Marshall's organizing a group to confront Clayton," he explained, "and searching for Blackwood. The situation's coming to a head." "About time," Logan commented grimly. "Clayton's been getting away with too much for too long." They settled in to wait, the Reverend taking the opportunity to tend to his parish record book, which he'd brought with him. Logan and Vanessa sat at the table, speaking quietly to avoid waking the children. "This feels familiar," Vanessa observed, looking around the cabin that had briefly been her home. "Being here again." "Cabin's missed you," Logan said simply. Then, with a faint smile, "I have too." She returned his smile, reaching across to touch his hand. "Logan, before the fire interrupted us, I was going to tell you something." His expression grew serious, attentive. "I'm listening now. I've been thinking about what you said about wanting me in your life, about making this place a home." She took a deep breath. "I feel the same way. Being in town these past weeks, I've realized how much I miss being here, with you." His fingers tightened around hers. "What are you saying, Vanessa?" "I'm saying that I care for you deeply, more than I thought possible in such a short time." And if you still want me to consider a future together, the sound of approaching horses interrupted her once again. Logan was on his feet instantly, moving to the window with his rifle ready. 6 riders, he reported tensely. Clayton's in front. The Reverend closed his book, standing to join Logan. Sheriff must not have found him yet. Get the children to the cellar, Logan instructed Vanessa. There's a trapdoor in my bedroom under the rug. Stay there until I come for you. Vanessa nodded, hurrying to wake the children. Thomas was alert immediately, helping her usher his siblings to the hidden cellar access. As she lowered the trapdoor over them, she heard Clayton's voice outside, demanding Logan come out. Against her better judgment, she crept to the bedroom window, peering out carefully. Clayton sat on his horse in the yard, 5 armed men flanking him. Logan and the Reverend stood on the porch, Logan's rifle held casually but ready. "This is a surprise, Clayton," Logan was saying, his voice deceptively calm. "Didn't expect a social call." "Cut the act, Lawson," Clayton snapped. "You've got something that belongs to me." "Nothing here that's yours," Logan replied evenly. "The Blackwood brats," Clayton clarified, his composure slipping. "The boy heard something he shouldn't have. Need to make sure he understands the importance of keeping quiet." "There are no children here," the Reverend interjected, his moral authority evident in his tone. "And even if there were, they would be under the protection of the church and the law," Clayton laughed, a harsh sound without humor. "The law, sheriff marshals locked up back in town. Had a little accident, fell and hit his head, and the church? Reverend, you're a long way from your pulpit." Vanessa's blood ran cold at the threat implicit in Clayton's words. She glanced toward the trapdoor, relieved the children were safely hidden, then back to the confrontation outside. "This has gone far enough, Clayton," Logan stated, his rifle now raised. "You've rustled cattle, burned buildings, threatened children. It ends here." "You're outnumbered, Lawson," Clayton pointed out. "Even with the man of God at your side, be reasonable. Give us the boy and we'll leave the others alone." "Not happening," Logan replied. Clayton sighed theatrically. "Then I'm afraid we'll have to take him by force, and anyone who gets in our way will suffer the consequences." He raised his hand, about to signal his men, when a shot rang out not from Logan's rifle, but from somewhere behind Clayton's group. One of Clayton's men cried out, clutching his shoulder as he tumbled from his horse. What the Clayton wheeled his horse around, just as more riders emerged from the trees, the sheriff, very much alive, leading a group of armed townsmen. "Drop your weapons," Marshall called. "You're surrounded, Clayton." Chaos erupted in the yard. 2 of Clayton's men surrendered immediately, throwing down their guns. Another tried to flee and was quickly captured. Clayton and his remaining man opened fire, spurring their horses toward the trees. Logan's rifle cracked and Clayton's horse went down, sending the saloon owner tumbling to the dirt. His last loyal man hesitated, then raised his hands in surrender. Within minutes, the fighting was over. Clayton lay on the ground, clutching his leg where Logan's bullet had grazed him, his face contorted with rage and pain. "Perfect timing, Sheriff," Logan commented as Marshall dismounted. "Had a feeling Clayton might head here when he found out I was gathering men," the sheriff explained. "Pretended to be injured, let him think he had the advantage." He nodded toward the cabin. "Children safe in the cellar," Logan confirmed. "Vanessa's with them." At the sound of her name, Vanessa emerged from the cabin, relief washing over her at the sight of Clayton and his men in custody. "It's over," the sheriff told her. "Clayton's foreman confessed to everything, the rustling, the fire, threatening the Blackwood boy, said Clayton ordered it all." "What about Mr. Blackwood?" Vanessa asked. "Found him unconscious behind the saloon," Marshall reported. "He'll recover, though his drinking days might be behind him after this scare." The aftermath unfolded quickly. Clayton and his men were taken to the jail in Helena, where they would await trial for multiple serious crimes. The Blackwood children were reunited with their chastened father, who swore to give up drinking and be a proper parent to them. Mrs. Patterson began rebuilding her store with the town's enthusiastic help, determined not to let the fire defeat her. Through it all, Logan and Vanessa found themselves drawn together by the shared experience, their interrupted conversations still hanging between them. waiting to be finished. A week after Clayton's arrest, Vanessa was preparing to close the schoolhouse for the day when Logan appeared in the doorway. He watched as she erased the blackboard and straightened the students' desks. "You're good at this," he observed. "Teaching?" She turned, pleased to see him. "I enjoy it more than I expected. These children are remarkable." "So is their teacher." He stepped inside, hat in hands. "Do you have plans this evening?" "Nothing specific," she replied, her heart quickening at his presence. "Why do you ask? Thought you might like to ride out to the hill." "The one with the view. Sun's setting soon. It's beautiful this time of year." His invitation carried weight beyond a simple outing, and they both knew it. "I'd like that very much," she said softly. They rode in comfortable silence, the familiar landscape now tinged gold by the late afternoon sun. When they reached the hilltop, Logan spread a blanket on the ground, producing a small basket containing bread, cheese, and a bottle of wine. "This is lovely," Vanessa said, genuinely touched by his thoughtfulness. "A proper picnic." "Sarah's idea," he admitted with a sheepish smile. Wrote to her for advice. The thought of this serious, self-sufficient man asking his sister for romantic advice warmed Vanessa's heart. They ate and talked as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in spectacular shades of orange and pink. "We keep getting interrupted," Logan said finally, setting aside his wine glass. "Every time we try to have this conversation, something happens: gunshots, fires, rustlers. Perhaps the universe is telling us something," Vanessa suggested with a smile. "Or testing us," Logan countered, his expression serious. "Seeing if we're determined enough to finish what we've started." He took her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against her skin. "Vanessa, these past weeks have shown me what my life could be like with you in it. Brighter, more purposeful. When I said this cabin is home with you inside, I meant it more than I realized at the time." "Logan, let me finish," he said softly. "I'm not good with words, but I need to say this properly. I love you, Vanessa Lockhart. I know it's fast. I know we come from different worlds. But out here, that doesn't matter as much as what we feel for each other. I'm asking if you could see yourself building a life here, not just as the school teacher, but as my wife." Vanessa felt tears spring to her eyes at his heartfelt declaration. "Oh, Logan. When I came here, I was running from my past, looking for a safe place to rebuild my life. I never expected to find someone like you, someone who would make me feel not just safe, but cherished." She squeezed his hand. "I love you too. And yes, I can absolutely see myself building a life here with you." The joy that spread across his face was like the sunrise, transformative, illuminating. He pulled her gently into his arms, his kiss tender but filled with promise. When they parted, Logan reached into his pocket, producing a small wooden box. "Belonged to my mother," he explained, opening it to reveal a simple gold band with a small pearl. "Would be honored if you'd wear it. It's beautiful," Vanessa whispered as he slipped it onto her finger. "Perfect." They watched the sunset together, making plans for their future. The school term would end in June. They could marry in the summer. Logan's cabin would need expanding, perhaps another bedroom or two for the family they hoped to have. Vanessa could continue teaching until their first child arrived, then perhaps tutor from home. As twilight deepened around them, Logan helped Vanessa to her feet. "We should head back before it gets too dark." "Yes," she agreed, though reluctant to end this perfect moment. "Back to the cabin." "Back home," Logan corrected, drawing her close once more. "With you inside, it's finally a home." 6 months later, on a perfect summer day, Vanessa Lockhart became Vanessa Lawson in a ceremony attended by the entire town. Sarah came from Helena with her husband and new baby, delighted to gain a sister and see her brother so happy. The Blackwood children, thriving under their reformed father's care, were honored attendants. Mrs. Patterson, her store rebuilt and thriving, provided a magnificent wedding feast. Logan had expanded the cabin as planned, adding a larger kitchen, a proper parlor, and a second bedroom. Though still modest by Eastern standards, to Vanessa it was perfect, a true home filled with love and possibility. On their wedding night, as they stood on the porch watching the stars emerge, Vanessa leaned her head against her husband's shoulder. "Happy?" Logan asked, his arm secure around her waist. Completely, she assured him, the gold band on her finger catching the lamplight from inside. Though I do have one confession to make. Oh, he looked down at her, eyebrows raised. That first night when I said this cabin isn't much, I was wrong, she admitted. It was always much more than it appeared, like its owner. Logan chuckled, the sound rumbling pleasantly against her. We've both come a long way since then. And we have so much further to go, she replied, turning in his arms to face him. Together. As Logan led his bride inside their home, Vanessa reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come to Montana seeking safety and redemption, a place to rebuild her shattered life. Instead, she had found love, purpose, and a community that valued her for who she truly was. The cabin that had once seemed so humble now felt like the grandest home imaginable because it was theirs, filled with promises kept and dreams shared. As Logan closed the door behind them, shutting out the vast Montana night, Vanessa knew with absolute certainty that she had found where she belonged. In the years that followed, their family grew first with twins, a boy and girl who inherited their father's blue eyes and their mother's quick mind, then with a second son who arrived during a winter blizzard. Logan expanded the ranch, becoming one of the most respected cattlemen in the territory. Vanessa eventually returned to teaching, establishing a proper academy that drew students from throughout the region. Their cabin grew too, evolving into a proper ranch house, though they preserved the original structure at its heart, a constant reminder of where their journey together had begun. On quiet evenings, they would still sit together on the porch, watching the sunset over the land they both loved, grateful for the twists of fate that had brought a Boston schoolteacher and a Montana rancher together against all odds. And whenever visitors remarked on the beauty of their home, Logan would catch Vanessa's eye across the room, the memory of their beginning passing silently between them, of a woman who once said, "This cabin isn't much," and the cowboy who knew it was home with you inside.